In Jorge Luis Borges' short story, The Shape of the Sword, we have a narration by the author who then is telling a story that was told to him by this rather, until the end of the story, enigmatic character who's known as the Englishman at La Colorada. And we get a description of him. His face was traversed by a vengeful scar, an ashen and almost perfect arc that sliced from the temple on one side of his head to the cheek on the other. His true name does not matter. Everyone called him by this title. The owner of the land hadn't wanted to sell it. I heard the Englishman plied him with an argument no one could have foreseen. He told him the secret history of the scar. And we learned something about this person's character. The land that he got wasn't in great shape. The Englishman worked shoulder to shoulder with his peons. People say he was harsh to the point of cruelty, but scrupulously fair. They also say he liked his drink. Once or twice a year, he would shut himself up in the room in the Belvedere, and 2 or 3 days later, he would emerge as though from a battle or a spell of dizziness, pale, shaking, befuddled, and as authoritarian as ever. So the narrator spends some time with him. They drink rum in the evening. And then he asks, well, what about this scar of yours? He says, I don't know what inspiration or elation or boredom led me to remark on my host's scar. His face froze. For several seconds, I thought he was going to eject me from the house. But at last, his voice perfectly ordinary, he said to me, I will tell you the story of the scar under one condition. Now, it's an interesting condition, what he's going to ask for. No contempt or condemnation be withheld. No mitigation for any iniquity be pleaded. So, no excuses be made, no justification. React in the way that you should. And so then he tells a story about this Irish revolutionary group and a peculiar guy known as John Vincent Moon. So he says that in 1922, in one of the cities of Connacht, I was one of the many young men who were conspiring to win Ireland's independence. Of my companions, some are still living, working for peace. Others are fighting under English colors. The best of us all was shot at dawn in the courtyard of a prison, executed by men filled with dreams. Others met their fate in the anonymous, virtually secret battles of the Civil War. We were Republicans and Catholics. We were, I suspect, romantics. For us, Ireland was not just the utopian future, an unbearable present. It was a bitter yet loving mythology. And then he says, one evening, somebody joined our group, one of our own, from Munster, a man named John Vincent Moon. Now, who is this guy? He's an intellectual. And we're going to find out that this is really central to who he is. And he's not just any sort of intellectual. He is a communist. And, this probably corresponds to quite a few doctrinaire communists that one could have run across. And we can think of people in the present who have similar sorts of stances. It has less to do with communism, and it has more to do with thinking that you understand how everything works and is set up. So, we read, he was thin yet slack-muscled. He gave the uncomfortable impression of being an invertebrate. He had studied virtually every page of one of those communist manuals. He would haul out his dialectical materialism to cut off any argument. And as opposed to what the narrator then tells us, there are infinite reasons a man may have for hating or loving another man. Moon reduced the history of the world to one sordid economic conflict, and he declared that the revolution was foreordained to triumph. And then he talks about Moon essentially handing down verdicts, right? He says, the verdicts Moon handed down impressed me considerably less than the sense of unappealable and absolute truth with which he issued them. The new comrade did not argue. He did not debate. He pronounced judgment contemptuously and to a degree wrathfully. And again, I think we can think of 20-year-olds that we've met like that, and there's sometimes 60-year-olds like that as well. And what does he do? Well, his part is subjecting his comrades to, as it's going to be called, harsh interrogations, right? So we read that he subjected me to a harsh interrogation as to the financial resources of our revolutionary party. And the narrator says, his questions were actually quite on point. They were lucid. And I told him truthfully the situation was grave, right? A little bit later on, when he's in the house, he says that he inquired into our plans. He enjoyed criticizing or rethinking them. He was also much given to deploring our woeful financial base. Dogmatically and somberly, he would prophesy the disastrous end. Satan affaire flambe, he would mutter. Now, flambe, an affaire flambe means it's going to go up in flames. So he thinks that the revolution in general will succeed, but this particular corner of Ireland and the people running the show here don't really know what they're doing, and it's probably not going to succeed. And the narrator also talks about Moon, who's displayed himself as a coward, and we're going to talk about that shortly, displaying this mental arrogance to show that his physical cowardice was a matter of indifference to him. So, sort of displacing or sublimating, I can't succeed in this way, so I will succeed in this other way instead. People often do this sort of thing in their lives, don't they? We do find out that he is a coward. So he freezes when they are in the middle of a battle, and he has to be saved by the narrator, who is going to bring him back to this house of General Berkeley out in the country. And it's a huge place. They've got, interesting books there and swords and mementos and stuff like that. And the general is gone to the Bengal at that time. We're also going to find out that given the opportunity, he does get shot in the arm, but it's kind of a flesh wound. Given the opportunity to join in an operation, Moon is going to turn it down. He's going to say, I'm not going to join in on this. So he really is a coward, not just in battle, but preparing for battle. And this is determinative of his character. Now, interestingly, there's a reflection that is part of the story, and I think it gives a little bit away. So this is a paragraph that begins, "It was then I realized he was a hopeless coward. I clumsily told him to take care of himself, then left. I was embarrassed by the man and his fear, shamed by him as if I were myself the coward, not Vincent Moon. Whatever one man does, it is as though all men did it. That is why it's not unfair. A single act of disobedience in a garden should contaminate all humanity. This is why it's not unfair. A single Jew's crucifixion should be enough to save it. Schopenhauer may have been right. I am other men. Any man is all men. Shakespeare is somehow the wretched John Vincent Moon." Big, important foreshadowing here, right? So Moon is a coward. He's also kind of an intellectual bully. And as it's going to turn out, he's also a traitor. So we learn that the city falls into the hands of the blacks and tans, these legendary, British soldiers who are pretty ferocious, and the Irish, are in dire straits if they're there. And what does he find out? Moon was in the library talking to someone. I realized from the tone of his voice he was speaking on the telephone. Then I heard my name. Then that I'd be back at 7, and then I'd be arrested as I came across the lawn. he says, my rational friend was rationally selling me out. So Moon is not just a coward, he's the kind of coward who will sell out his comrades to save his own skin. And what does the narrator do? Well, here's where we get something interesting. My story becomes confused and peters out a bit. I know I chased the snitch through black corridors of nightmare and steep stairwells of vertigo. Moon knew the house well, every bit as I. Once or twice I lost him, but I managed to corner him before the soldiers arrested me. From one of the general's suits of armor, I seized a scimitar, and with that steel crescent left a flourish on his face forever, a half moon of blood. And then he says, to you alone, Borges, you who are a stranger, I've made this confession. Your contempt is perhaps not so painful. And what is the twist here? Well, the narrator is, in fact, Moon. He is the traitor. And he tells Borges, I have told the story this way so that you would hear it out. It was I who betrayed the man who saved me and gave me shelter. It is I who am Vincent Moon. Now despise me, right? Don't let any contempt or condemnation be withheld. No mitigation for any iniquity to be pleaded. Despise me as the miserable person who I am. And that's where the story ends, with the revelation that it's, not actually one man. Every man is every other man. He is the one who has both been telling the story from the perspective of his comrade who was brave, who did help him out, and who was killed after his betrayal, and then finally reveals who he is, this odious person, John Vincent Moon.